everyone, I'm Lisa Choegyal, and a warm welcome to all listeners and viewers. Today the four of us are here to talk about tourism and enterprise on the auspicious anniversary of 60 years of UNDP. We're here in the UNDP building. It's also the 70-year anniversary of the UN. And we're particularly here to discuss the amazing contribution of UNDP to Nepal tourism and enterprise development over the years that they have been here in Nepal. So I'm Lisa Choegyal.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Shradha Shrestha. I'm from Nepal Tourism Board. I've been working in Nepal Tourism Board for the last 20 years. I work as the brand specialist there. And also, I have been associated with UNDP's project. We have a project called a Sustainable Tourism Project, and I lead the project as a National Program Coordinator as of now.
Great. We look forward to hearing more about that.
Mm-hmm. Hello, this is Nabina Shrestha. I'm livelihoods and private sector partnership specialist. I have worked in this area more than 24 years. Including 20 years with UNDP, and also I've worked in different countries, like even difficult countries. Went to Gaza, Ethiopia, and Mozambique. So all these difficult countries, and working as a specialist there as well.
Great. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Mm-hmm. Me, Dipendra Purush Dhakal. I am the retired civil servant. I was with the Tourism and Civil Aviation Ministry. I retired as a secretary from that ministry, and before that I was also the Director General of Department of Tourism. So altogether I spent around, say, 8 years in tourism, and then moved to Ministry of Forest and Soil Conservation, where again the Department of National Parks and Wildlife Conservation, that also has some linkages with the tourism anyway. So that was how I was directly or indirectly related with tourism for a number of years.
But UNDP on its 60th birthday has a lot to celebrate, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the role of UNDP is not only as a facilitator of policy and infrastructure, but as a partner in building an inclusive ecosystem of local enterprise and communities, which ranges from women hoteliers to trekking guides to digital startups. So that's what we're going to try and cover today, and we've got absolutely the right people with us. Lumbini and the Nepal Academy were started in the early 70s, and that's about when I first arrived in Nepal.
72.
Wow.
To be exact.
And
ILO finance, hotel management, and tourism training center, that converted into Nathan. Yes.
So I arrived in 1974, right? So allow me to say a few words about the history of tourism, because way back in those days, I was lucky enough to be working with some of the really early pioneers of tourism, many of whom were very colourful and actually rather well-known characters. I'm a sustainable tourism and conservation specialist, and I started working in tourism after I kind of failed as a hippie. I first came here trekking and thought it was really boring hanging around in Vasantapur, so I got stuck in and started working in Chitwan for Tiger Tops in those days. I also worked with Mountain Travel Nepal, which was the pioneer mountaineering trekking organization started by Colonel Jimmy Roberts. I think you've probably heard of, the British defence attaché who started the trekking industry and actually invented that word, trek, which So we worked alongside lots of Nepal's tourism innovators, colourful characters such as Boris Lasanovic and the Royal Hotel, which we all drive past every day. It's now the Election Commission, right? Jim Edwards, who pioneered wildlife tourism. We were showing people tigers and rhinos, and we were riding elephants in those days. And he was my boss for 25 years, Jim Edwards. Dwarika Das Shrestha, and of course Ambika, who started the Dwarikas Hotel, which is still one of the great heritage hotels of Asia. And Karna Sakya, who started the Kathmandu Guest House. There's lots. There's so many people that I could mention. I knew Tony Hagen, who has written lots of books, and in the 1950s walked the length and breadth of the country. Bob Fleming, I don't know if you remember, he wrote a beautiful book about birds, and he started what's now the Patton Hospital, previously Shantavawan, right?
Shantavawan.
Yeah. And Dorbado Bista, Nepal's first visionary anthropologist. Sir Edmund Hillary, of course, and Tenzing Norgay, who put Nepal on the map by first climbing Mount Everest in 1953. And of course, along with Lumbini, Everest is our incredible national icon that draws people here, from mountaineers to just people doing the mountain flight and just knowing that Everest is around. So for the past 25 years after that, I've been sharing the lessons learned in Nepal as a tourism consultant. And I've worked all over the Asia-Pacific region, Africa. I've worked with UNDP on tourism, and not only in Nepal, but also in Myanmar and Tibet, as well as lots of other tourism projects. So of course, since those early days, Nepal has changed a huge amount, and I think very much for the better. In many cases, there's been some really great lessons to learn from Nepal tourism, and UNDP and other donors have been a super big part of that. So I'd like to hand over now to you distinguished change makers who are with us here today, and to hear a bit more about how that's happened. And let me start with my old friend Dipendra, who has, I don't know, not everyone is probably aware that UNDP actually started the Nepal Tourism Board.
Yeah.
It was a project, Partnership for Quality Tourism, which Dr. Chandra Gurung from Siklis was on the team. I was on the team. It was led by Les Clark from New Zealand. And we modelled the Nepal Tourism Board on the key public-private institution, which makes it such an important part of things today. It was actually modelled on the Singapore Tourism Board. But at that time, the first chairman of the Tourism Board was the then Tourism Secretary, our very own Dipendra Purush Dhakal. So maybe let's hear from you a little bit about the collaboration and how UNDP's initiative have helped Nepal from your perspective in policies and priorities of the government over the years.
Okay, if you allow me to add one more name in your list is Maurice Herzog.
Yes, Annapurna.
Who ascended Annapurna in 1950.
The first 8,000 meter peak to be climbed.
Yes, and then after that peak is closed. I mean, nobody climbs Annapurna 1 anymore. If you go back, you mentioned about the Lumbini things. Uthant, right, in the late 1960s. He was then the Secretary General, as you mentioned. So he was the first one to have an interest on the Buddhism and Lumbini as well. So that led, and that was the UNDP project. That led Khenjo Tange to come and prepare the master plan. And we still talk about that master plan in Lumbini. You did your South Asia tourism project. You talked more about Lumbini as well in that. So the Khenjo Tange is still a good reference whenever we come back to the Lumbini, isn't it? So this is how the UNDP started since then. Just think about it. And 1972, you mentioned Hotel Management Tourism Training Center. And then also there was, in between was a small project. Enhancement of women entrepreneurship. There was a small project of UNDP. And then after came the Partnership for Quality Tourism, Les Clark you mentioned. So if I am not mistaken, Partnership in Quality Tourism had started in 94. And it went on till, say, 3.5 years or something like that.
Yeah, it resulted in the formation of the Tourism Board in 98, right? 98. December 98.
98. I'll come back to that. It's a very interesting stories that comes out when UNDP was formed. But okay, before going into that, let me also take you back to 1972 master plan. tourism master plan, right? So that was really a comprehensive one. That was assisted by Germany. In 1983, EU contributed to update that plan. That was 2 years plan. So 83. Look at that. I mean, all these donors have somehow been associated, not only UNDP, supplemented by, say, Germany, and UNESCO you mentioned about.
Yeah.
So World Heritage Sites, that we have a number of World Heritage Sites, that's the UNESCO. So under the UN umbrella itself, ILO we mentioned, UNESCO we mentioned, and UNDP.
And World Tourism Organization,
yes,
World Tourism
WTO as well.
Very involved.
Very true. So this is how the tourism has grown over. And this, when we talk about the success stories, we often talk about, say, public-private partnership, right? The monopoly of the Nepali airlines was abandoned. We brought in the private sector into it. The hotels, the travel agencies, they grew in a number since 1987. Then we had special campaigns we organized. Visit Nepal 98, Destination Nepal campaign 2002, 2003. 2011 was the Nepal Tourism Year. So, I mean, there are a lot of success stories that we have in tourism. And there are not many examples of setbacks, not many examples, as I say. All the other things had been, say, in a progressive moment, and there are a lot to share. As I said, tourism always has been industry for the private sector.
But I do think that we have had setbacks, and those have been tended to be natural and man-made crises and disasters. And somehow Nepal has got really good at managing, or a lot better than it used to be, at managing these amazing setbacks that we've had. I mean, the insurgency halved tourism at the time, then the huge earthquake in 2015, and now pandemic, and lots of dramas and floods and landslides and horrible things in between, as well as government changes. So maybe this is a good moment to ask Shradha, because the one thing that I noticed in the last month since Gen Z is that we've had incredibly impressive crisis management, information sharing, really proactive weather forecasting, which has saved so many lives this year. At the height of the season, this huge cyclone storm came, and because of the really good information from the government, not a single trekker's life was lost due directly to the storm. Of course, we've had some tragedies for the mountaineers and other accidents with avalanches that were a result of the storm. But so tell us a little bit, Shradha, with your experience. Shradha's really the clever, young, fresh face of tourism, as opposed to us oldies. So tell us a little bit from your point of view about the NTB's priorities, and then maybe a little bit about the current UNDP projects which are running with you.
Thank you, Lisa. First of all, I'm so honored to be sitting with the legends. I would, after hearing what Dipendra sir just said, that you and Dipendra sir were behind, the force that gave birth to NTB. So I am here today, standing, talking in this position because of the two legends here. I'm so thankful, and thanks to UNDP as well. So it's 20 years that I've been with Nepal Tourism Board, and this 20 years I had the privilege to see the tourism industry grow. We had the golden days and we had the heydays, and also the partnership. I've witnessed the partnership between Nepal Tourism Board and UNDP evolved. So because when I joined, it was in the mid TRPAP days, like there's Tourism for Rural Poverty Alleviation project was there. So I've seen the partnership grow from TRPAP to the current day when we are heading the Sustainable Tourism Project. So yes, so what I thought is, like, the partnership which began with concentration for community tourism development those days has now initiated with more modern things like people, planet, and prosperity in the heart of both the organization. So that's the change that I've seen, and it's really remarkable. So with those philosophies, we started TRPAP and introduced tourism as one of the mediums to reduce poverty in the rural areas. Not only that, we brought those indigenous communities, we preserved culture in the mainstream tourism. So the linkage was always there. And with our second project, the Sustainable Tourism for Livelihood Recovery Project, which came in such a moment, that when there was pandemic, when the whole world was halted, there was no tourism movement, and almost 200,000 people in Nepal who worked in the hospitality sector had lost their jobs, especially the people, the frontline workers in the trekking areas, in the mountains, who had to work every day, like they had to depend on the daily wages to meet their ends. So those people were the targets. So we reached out to some of the development donors, and thankfully UNDP came as a strategic partner at that difficult time. The UNDP again approached us to expand the project, because the second project was from 2021 to 2004. So 2024, sorry. So with the help of the ministry and the NTB board members, we were able to expand the project to another 3 to 5 years, depending upon the resources allocated. So these are the things that's happened in the new one. And we from the project, from the UNDP, from the project, we are taking NTB's objectives and NTB's vision in our mind to enhance our activities as well, because the third project which we are now working, it's more we are working towards NTB's, Nepal Tourism Board's strengthening and the industry strengthening. We want to make and these things called sustainability and inclusiveness, these I think is no more a choice for us. It's like it's become the foundation of NTB's tourism future.
I think one of the things sometimes we take for granted, or we kind of forget to remember, is what amazing attractions we have here in Nepal. I mean, the combination of the mountains, the culture, the wildlife, the adventure, rivers and mountaineering, and
the people.
And
yes,
most of all,
people.
one should say the people, because that's what
friendly
brings people back.
Yeah.
When you look at competitive destinations, we do have the most amazing attractions, but perhaps we're selling them a bit too cheap and making, we're still slightly stuck in that sort of budget destination.
Do you allow me to add on that a little bit? As Shradha very rightly mentioned, the community involvement and other things that has developed for long time already. If we just go back to see who are the, say, beneficiaries of tourism, or who are the clientele, one is government, one is tourism industry, third is community. They have to own it, right? And the fourth is the tourist itself. So these are the four.
Yeah. So as we're talking about community, maybe now's the moment to ask Nabina to please. We're so fortunate to have Nabina with us.
Thank you.
With her experience in generating small business opportunities and livelihoods throughout the whole country. I first worked with MEDEP, the micro-enterprise program you're going to talk about, when we were doing the Great Himalaya Trail, which was an effort to spread tourism benefits north, east and west throughout the mountains, away from Annapurna and Everest, which even today get the bulk, with Langtang, get the bulk of visitors. So please explain to us about enterprise development and inclusive growth that you have been doing for so long here. Nabina.
Thank you very much, Elisa. Actually, micro-enterprise development, it started in 1998. It was UNDP who started, but implementing partner was government, as usual. And then over the years, Australian government, main donors, and DFID, and also SIDA, and actually even New Zealand, they also contributed financially. And the government in 2018 started with a very small project, pilot project, then government fully internalized, and implement it in all over the country with their own resources. And can you imagine, they are still implementing. Now local bodies, there's not only central government, Ministry of Industry and Commerce and Supplies, not only they are responsible, but local bodies, they are taking the whole responsibility.
So what sort of businesses were you concentrating on?
Oh, with agro-based, forest-based and tourism-based, most of them. Communities, homestays, lodges,
local guides.
Yeah, eco trails and all those, and also supplying the organic food to the, farmers, to the lodges and homestays. So linking this backward and forward linkages as well, the fruits and those kind of things. So integrated approaches started with the entrepreneurship development of the, potential entrepreneurs, then link with the microfinance and also market linkages, appropriate technology, those stepwise, even skill trainings, that is the one. As a result, MEDEP created more than 200,000 entrepreneurs. That is also more than 80%, that is direct, contributions. Because of the effect, there are so many other got the jobs, forget about that, just 200,000 entrepreneurs. That's also 80% women, 30% from socially excluded people. We managed to do that, and 40% youth. Kesa Kumari Pariyar was born into a Dalit family, most marginalized communities. And she got married at the age of 17, 18. And she gave birth of like six daughters, hoping to have a son. So, she was discriminated from the starting, because of the caste and because of the, a poverty. And then she was discriminated even more because she didn't have a son. And then, luckily, in 1999, she was selected as a participant of MEDEP. And she knew a basic skill of tailoring. Because of the caste, they, they have a tailoring skill, but didn't have much. Then she got all this support from MEDEP, entrepreneurship, linkages to the loan, and also market linkages and all those kind of the appropriate technologies. Then imagine, she not only became over the years not successful entrepreneurs, but also community leader. She motivated many women and also men, of course. And also she became the community leader. Then over the years, in 2006, I think, she became the leader of National Entrepreneurs Association and members, 60,000 members. So that big she became. And she didn't even know how to read and write.
Especially in today's context, with to stem the outflow of out-migration, to try and keep Nepalis in Nepal in order to have growth within the country and employment within the country. Your experience is really useful, and of course we always think that tourism can help keeping people within Nepal. So just as a last word, Nabina, what do you think about the potential employment opportunities for youth in Nepal, especially in relation to tourism? It sounds like you've set up a very good base to use these.
So I just feel that, especially I would like to really recommend to have a livelihood projects, especially, and also concentrating on, of course, tourism. But to start with the project, I would like to recommend UNDP that look at the lesson learned from micro enterprise development, because these are already closed. They have created, and TRPAP as well, already seen how tourism and enterprise, can transform the lives of many people.
Great.
And they have set up homestays, especially youngsters, and eco lodges, trekking trails, and also made the linkages with the value chain of this tourism enterprises. Organic products, fruits and vegetables.
Great.
Those are the things,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shradha, I wanted to ask you about a vision of the future for NTB. Nepal has, as Dipendra said, we've had lots of wins and there's still some issues. I think safety shows up always as a very high issue for our source markets, and especially air safety is something that we're still struggling with. I know the European Union have been helping on that, but we've got now world-class search and rescue teams working here, and of course it's exciting that Nepalis have really taken over the mountaineering industry with their companies. So, but in terms of the future, a sort of ideal future for Nepal tourism, could you just give us a last word on your perspective as that very core important partnership with the private sector?
You rightly mentioned about Nepal's crisis, and I've always felt, for 20 years that I've joined Nepal Tourism Board, I've always seen our country, the tourism industry, in the recovery phase. There's so many crises we're trying to recover, and that has made us so resilient. And then we know, we'll always come, we'll build back better. So, yeah. So the whole, the vision for tomorrow is, I guess, Lisa, we should. I really want our industry to come over this recovery, this ongoing recovery stage to a transformative stage. Just envisioning our tourism industry to be more, digitally sound, more. They call it the climate smart, and with inclusion and a good ecosystem, so that will help to promote Nepal to be a leader in the tourism industry, more in the sustainable tourism industry, because our projects, UNDP's mandate and our projects output is to help strengthen the Nepalese tourism industry in this sector.
And perhaps professionalize them a bit, not have, we've got so many thousands of agencies. Let's have maybe less and more professional actors.
And just to add on to what Nabina ji just said, because she emphasized on the enterprise development. So our project is also in the future. We are also looking into developing rural-based people, the communities. They come as the frontline entrepreneurs. So in all the provinces, we, the output, one of the major output of our STB, Sustainable Tourism Project, is to create 350 green jobs. So for that, we are planning to have a boot camp in all the provinces. So working, so we actually did one in 2019. That was from the Tourism Board. And I was one of them, who led the project. So we are trying to replicate it. And interestingly, it's not only UNDP, but other projects like World Bank and Swiss Development Corporation, they want to come in as partners to enhance this activities. So they want to come in as partners.
They
so
really see tourism as a way to deliver benefits.
So that's really exciting.
Add something on green enterprises. UNDP also had an excellent, innovative idea and the project that time, public-private partnership for urban environment.
Yes.
And this is what exactly did, created many, jobs for youth, involving them in a green enterprises. So, working with the UNDP, work with the municipalities, and instead of municipalities taking care of a waste and toilets and parks, even the touristic places, they give the responsibility to the youth groups.
Perfect, really
and
good.
these youth groups, it's like a win-win situation, public-private partnership, this like a municipality didn't have to spend much time on managing all this, and they were not very good at managing, you know, like public toilets and all. So youth group, they took over the responsibility, and they managed it so well. Clean, you know, like toilets, but of course they charge money. That's how they generated income. And the parks also, you know, like they did that. So green enterprises, and from toilet waste, they turned into the like a biogas, biogas and the recycling, and they did all
and all those things which are really mandatory in any sort of tourism.
It would be good to
today.
look at into that experience of public-private partnership and also the
and coming from the private sector, it's music to my ears. You know, the private sector are absolutely essential to work together on this. But let's give the last word as we're running out of time. Let's give the last word to our senior Dipendra about.
So let me get back to the how Nepal Tourism Board came into operation. Maybe that would be of interest before going into
briefly.
The partnership. I mean, there where we can see that multiple donors are involved to create Nepal Tourism. Partnership for Quality Tourism project. It brought out the concept of it. Government took the concept.
ADB built the building. European
Yeah.
Union provided the marketing.
Before that, even for the formation, the government, meaning the cabinet, was not that encouraged enough to bring out the Nepal Tourism Board and dismantling Department of Tourism. So how
there
it
was
happened?
some resistance.
Yes, there was a lot of resistance. And how it became into operation is like there was a project under Department of Civil Aviation, and few airports were going to be constructed. That was ADB funded project. And there in that project we mentioned, that was 1998. In that project we mentioned a clause about, say, if Nepal Tourism Board is not formed, or if the Civil Aviation Authority Nepal is not formed, then this particular project is not going to be operational. So there was a clause of that nature. And then after only the cabinet was compelled to accept to dismantle these two departments, Civil Aviation Department and Department of Tourism, and that's how the Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal and Nepal Tourism Board came in. Meaning that at the final stages, ADB's contribution was a lot to bring it out. So UNDP and ADB. And we also should not forget that Visit Nepal year 1998. In Visit Nepal year 1998, the technical assistance part of that particular campaign was funded by UNDP.
Thank you for reminding us how important UNDP is. And perhaps on that note, I hope our viewers and listeners have really enjoyed our conversation today. I'd like to thank Nabina, Dipendra, and Shradha for being with me around this table, and especially thanks to UNDP, and many congratulations on your 60th anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you.